The morning sun rose slowly over the dusty town. Shops were just opening, and the streets still smelled of last night's rain in the corner diner. The same bell above the door rang as the first customer walked in, and behind the counter, wearing a faded apron and a tired smile, stood a young woman named Lily. She wasn't anyone special, at least, not to most people, just a poor waitress with rough hands. Worn shoes and tired eyes, she moved from table to table, pouring coffee, wiping crumbs, taking orders. Her back ached from the long hours. But she never complained. Lily had learned to live quietly. She worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7 when bills piled up. Rent was always late. Her shoes had holes, and her tips barely covered groceries. But she kept going. Because somewhere inside her was a secret after her shift ended. When the last plate was washed and the chairs were stacked upside down, Lily would walk to the back room of the diner. Hidden behind an old curtain was a piano, its paint chipped, its keys yellowed with time. Most people didn't even know it was there, but to Lily, it was everything. She had found it months ago while cleaning the storeroom. One touch of the keys brought back childhood memories her mother used to play. A small piano when she was little. Those were the best days before sickness, before struggle, before life got hard. Now, in the quiet of the night, Lily played softly. She didn't read music well, but she played by ear. Her fingers, though rough and calloused from scrubbing dishes, danced over the keys with surprising grace. Each note she played was a piece of her heart, raw, broken, and beautiful. No one listened. And maybe that was for the best, because Lily didn't play for applause. She played to feel alive, to forget the empty fridge, the overdue rent, the loneliness, even just for a moment. One evening, something changed. A group of wealthy-looking guests came into the diner. They were loud, laughing, dressed in expensive clothes that didn't belong in this town. They took over a corner booth and ordered with careless arrogance. Lily served them politely, even when they snapped fingers. And joked behind her back. When one of them asked her name, she replied quietly. He laughed. "You look more like a cleaner than a waitress." The others laughed too, not even looking at her face. Lily's hands trembled as she refilled their drinks, but she said nothing. She had heard worse. Still, their words stung later that night. When the diner emptied, Lily went to the back as usual. She sat down at the old piano, trying to shake off the cruel laughter. She began to play, soft, slow, like a whisper trying not to break, but she wasn't alone. The door behind her had stayed open a crack. One of the rich guests had wandered toward the sound. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Watching her with curiosity, she didn't notice him until the last note faded. When she turned and saw him there, her heart dropped. He smirked. Didn't expect the waitress to play like that. Then he pulled out his phone and hit record. "Play again," he said. She shook her head and stood up to leave, but the others had followed too. Now a small group stood in the doorway, watching like it was a circus show. One woman laughed. "So this is your talent?" What a joke. Lily's face turned red, her chest tight with shame without saying a word. She walked past them, her head down. She locked the piano room behind her that night. She cried on her small mattress, her pillow soaked with tears. She didn't want anyone to see, but the next morning Lily woke up early. She went to work, tied her apron, and smiled as usual. She had no choice. Life didn't stop for broken dreams, and if people couldn't see her heart through her hands, she would just keep playing in secret. What Lily didn't know was that the video the man had recorded would soon take a life of its own. And in a world where money often silenced truth, one waitress's song was about to make someone listen. The next few days at the diner felt the same orders, the same tired jokes, the same broken coffee machine making that strange sound. But something inside Lily had shifted. Her fingers still hurt from carrying plates, but her heart felt a little heavier than usual. She couldn't forget the laughter from the night they found her playing. The way they stood there, smirking like her music was just another joke. It wasn't just about being poor anymore. It was the way they looked through her, like she was invisible, like her dreams didn't matter. Still, she showed up for work. Still smiled at the grumpy regulars and wiped the same table twice. But she didn't go near the piano, not even once. The back room felt cold now, like a place that had betrayed her. Then, one evening, as the sky turned golden and the dinner rush slowed, the bell above the door rang. Lily looked up, and her heart skipped. The same group from before walked in again. Same designer clothes, same loud voices, same careless laughs. They took the same corner booth like it belonged to them. Lily felt her stomach twist. Her manager whispered, "Just serve them. Don't start anything." She nodded and grabbed her notepad, walking toward them with a calm face, but inside she was shaking. One of the men looked up and grinned. Well, if it isn't the piano girl," he said. The others laughed, like it was the best joke they'd heard all week. Lily kept her voice steady. "Can I take your order?" Another one said. "Sure, but only if you play something with it." The whole table burst into laughter. Lily forced a smile and wrote down their orders without another word, but her cheeks burned as she walked away. She heard one of them say, "We should post that video. It's hilarious." Lily's steps froze. They had the video she had forgotten in the kitchen. She leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. What if they posted it online? What if people saw her, not the music, not the feeling, but just a poor waitress playing a broken piano like a fool? She felt small, powerless, trapped. But something unexpected happened the next day. A man in a suit walked into the diner alone. He wasn't loud, he wasn't rude. He sat at the counter and quietly ordered a coffee. Lily didn't recognize him at first, but he was one of them, the one who had recorded her after a few minutes. He looked up and said softly, "I watched that video again." Lily didn't know what to say. He continued, "The others laughed, but I didn't, I don't think. They understood what you were playing." She frowned, not trusting his words. But he didn't smile or joke. He just sipped his coffee like a regular person. Then he pulled out his phone, opened the video, and hit play. Lily heard the first few notes of her song. It was her hands, her rhythm, her pain recorded in grainy quality. "But the emotion was still there," he said. "I've played this every night since." She looked at him in disbelief. "Why?" she asked. He shrugged. "Because it feels real." The door opened, and the rest of his group walked in again, loud and bright as always. They saw him at the counter and cheered. "Ethan, there you are." Lily finally remembered his name. Ethan turned to her and said quietly, "You deserve better than this." Then he stood up and joined his friends at the booth, but not before leaving a $100 bill under his cup with the words "Don't stop playing" written in pen. That night, Lily sat at the piano again. She didn't play a full song, just a few quiet notes. But for the first time in days, she didn't feel ashamed. Someone had heard her, not laughed, not mocked. He had listened. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something. In the booth, Ethan watched from the corner. He didn't say anything. He just listened again, and the others, too busy laughing at their own jokes, didn't even notice what was starting to change. The stage lights felt hotter than the sun. Lily sat at the grand piano, frozen for a moment. She could feel her pulse in her fingers. The crowd in front of her was silent, too silent. Dozens of eyes were on her polished shoes, glittering jewelry, faces expecting perfection. Her throat felt dry, her back stiff. She thought of turning around and walking off the stage. But then she remembered something her grandmother's voice from long ago, play like no one's watching. Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and pressed the first key. It rang clear and soft across the golden room. Then came another and another. She began to play not like a trained pianist, but like someone remembering how to breathe after a long time underwater. The first part of the song was quiet and careful. Her hands moved slowly, but as the notes flowed, her fear started to fade. The piano was a stranger, yet it listened. It let her speak through music. All the pain of working long hours. All the moments of being ignored, laughed at. Unseen, she poured it all into every note. There was no sheet music, just her heart, just the broken melody she had written in. Her mind, during years of silence, every time she struck a key, her fingers trembled. But the music didn't stop. It grew. It filled the room like rising water. The crowd was still. No one whispered. No one checked their phones. Some leaned forward, Some closed their eyes. Even the waiters froze in the back. Holding trays midair, Lily didn't notice any of it. She was back in the diner, back in the dusty room where no one ever listened. Only now, they were all listening, and they weren't laughing, they were silent, moved, when she played the final note. The sound hung in the air like smoke. She lifted her hands slowly. There was a moment of pure stillness. And then it happened. Applause, not polite, not forced. It started slow, then grew louder, real, honest, and powerful. Lily blinked back tears as she stood. Her knees shook, her heart raced. Then, someone stood up. It was Ethan. He walked up to the stage, stepped beside the piano, and did something. No one expected he got down on one knee, not to propose, but to honor her, to show respect. The billionaire who once laughed in a diner now knelt before a girl with calloused hands. The entire hall followed. One by one, people rose to their feet, clapping, whistling. Some even wiping away tears. Lily couldn't speak. She just smiled, hand on her chest. This was not a dream. This was real. Backstage, organizers asked for her name again. A man from a recording label handed her a card. Another whispered, "Where?" "Did you learn to play like that?" Lily simply answered. A back room in a small-town diner. Ethan waited for her near the entrance. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "You made them feel something they didn't know they needed." She nodded slowly. "Thank you for hearing me when no one else did," she whispered. He replied, "I didn't just hear you, Lily. I felt you." On the ride home, the city. Lights blurred through the window. She held the invitation card in one hand and her grandmother's old necklace in the other. And when she closed her eyes, she didn't see a crowd. She saw a piano in the dark and a girl who kept playing even. When no one clapped, the night after the gala, Lily lay awake in her small rented room. The applause still echoed in her ears. The spotlight still warmed her skin, but her room was cold, and the ceiling leaked just like always. Nothing had changed in yet. Everything. Had she kept replaying the moment Ethan knelt beside the piano? Not to show off, not to impress, but simply to show her respect. It wasn't for fame. It wasn't for the cameras. It was real. The next morning, Lily returned to the diner like she always did. She wore her apron, tied her hair back, and served. The early crowd, but people looked at her differently now. A woman came in just to say, "I saw the clip your music made me cry." Another handed her a note that read, "Don't ever stop playing." She blushed, thanked them, and went back to pouring coffee. But inside, something had started to bloom hope. Later that day, Ethan returned, not in a suit but in a simple shirt and jeans. He sat at the counter and waited silently. Lily approached, her heart fluttering. He smiled. "You played with more heart than any pianist I've ever seen." She smiled back. "I played because I didn't know what else to do." Ethan placed a folder on the counter and pushed it toward her. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were paper studio access, a personal piano coach, even a modest apartment closer to the city, all paid for, no strings attached. "I don't want to change you," Ethan said. "I just want the world. To hear you and your terms." Lily felt tears forming. "No one's ever done something like this for me," she whispered. He leaned in. "You've been giving people your soul. Every time you play this is just the world giving something back." For the first time, Lily allowed herself to dream. Not just about surviving, but about living, creating, belonging over the next few weeks. She began practicing in a quiet city studio. She brought her notebook of handwritten melodies and turned them into real songs. The staff treated her with kindness, never asking where she came from. They only cared about how her music made them feel. Ethan visited sometimes, not to control, but to support. He listened silently from the back of the room. He didn't offer advice. He only listened, and every time, he left quietly. Like he didn't want to disturb the magic, but one day he arrived looking troubled. He had received messages from his old friends, the same people who once laughed at Lily. They were confused, even upset. "Why are you spending time on a waitress?" one had texted. Another said, "You're throwing money at someone who plays sad diner music." Ethan didn't respond to any of them. Instead, he went straight to Lily. She was at the piano, playing a new melody, one filled with joy and heartbreak mixed together. He waited until she finished, and then told her everything. She looked at him calmly and said, "Let them talk. I'm not playing for them in that moment." Ethan realized something. He had been surrounded by people who only valued surface. But Lily had no mask, no show, just truth, and it was that truth that made even a millionaire want to kneel. One evening, after her first song was recorded, Lily invited Ethan to the diner. She wore her apron again, just like before, but this time, she brought him to the back room. The old piano still stood there, dusty but strong. She smiled. "This is where it started." He looked around and nodded. "It's not much." She said, "It's everything," he replied. She sat down and played again. No microphones, no cameras, just a girl and a piano and a man who finally understood what real music was. It was a quiet night in Ethan's penthouse apartment. The city lights sparkled outside his window, far away from the small town where Lily worked. But inside, the billionaire sat alone on his leather couch. His phone in one hand, he pressed play again, and Lily's music filled the room, soft and shaky, but full of soul. He didn't know why it hit him so hard. Maybe because it wasn't perfect like the polished music he usually heard. Maybe because it didn't come from a stage or a gold record studio. It came from a back room behind a greasy diner, and somehow it felt more honest than anything he'd heard before. That short video clip, shaky, blurry, had become a part of his nights. He didn't show it to his friends. He didn't post it anywhere. He just listened, again and again. It made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time, small, human, connected. Ethan was used to people trying to impress him at meetings, at parties, at events. Everyone wanted something from him, but Lily hadn't wanted anything. She hadn't even wanted him to hear, and when he did, she looked embarrassed, not proud. That's what stayed with him. Meanwhile, Lily went back to her quiet routine. She worked, served, smiled, and stayed out of sight, but her heart hadn't healed. She still didn't play much. The old piano felt like a wound she wasn't ready to touch again. But one evening, something strange happened. A young couple came into the diner and asked, "Is this the place with the piano girl?" Lily blinked. "Excuse me?" The woman smiled. "We saw a clip online. Just a few seconds of someone playing piano in a diner. We followed comments and found this town." Lily's throat went dry. Had someone shared the video? The couple sat down and ordered coffee. They didn't ask for her to play. They just looked around the diner with quiet wonder. And before they left, they tipped big and said, "Whoever that girl was, she made us cry." That night, Lily sat at the piano again. Her fingers hovered over the keys, unsure. Then, slowly, she began to play. The music came back like a flood. Not perfect, but full of feeling. Her eyes closed, and she lost herself in it. In that moment, Ethan walked in quietly, alone. He didn't say a word. He just leaned against the wall and listened. When the song ended, Lily looked up and froze. He stepped forward and said, "You don't need a big stage to touch people." She gave a small, tired smile. "You shouldn't have recorded me," she whispered. "I know," he said, "and I didn't mean to hurt you, but your music. It matters." He sat across from her in the empty diner. No friends, no laughter, just the two of them. He told her he hadn't posted the video, but someone else from his group must have leaked it. "It's spreading quietly," he said. "People are searching for the girl in the diner." Lily didn't know whether to be angry or afraid. She didn't want fame. She just wanted to play in peace. But a part of her wondered, what if this was a chance? Ethan leaned in and asked softly, "Would you come to the city for one night? There's a private music event this weekend. Small one. No cameras, no press. Just music lovers." Lily looked at him like he was joking. "I'm a waitress, not a performer," she said. He smiled gently. "You're more than you think." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She lay on her old mattress, staring at the ceiling. Part of her wanted to hide. But another part, the part that played piano in the dark, was finally awake again. And somewhere in a luxury apartment miles away, Ethan sat listening to her music. Not as a billionaire, not as someone powerful, but as a man who finally heard something real. Lily was cleaning tables when her manager walked over. Holding an envelope, "Someone left this for you," he said, placing it next to her hand. It was thick and white, with her name written in gold ink. Lily looked at it like it might be a mistake. She wiped her hands on her apron before opening it slowly. Inside was a cream-colored card with elegant writing. "You were invited to perform at the Ember Light Galan, Evening of Music and Meaning." The location was in the heart of the city. The date was 3 days away. Lily's mouth fell open. She had never been to the city. She didn't own a dress. Didn't know how to speak to rich people. She turned the card over, looking for a catch. But there was nothing else, just a phone number at the bottom. Her hands trembled as she folded the invitation back. Was this real? Had Ethan really meant what he said? Could someone like her belong in a place like that? She put the envelope in her bag and didn't mention it to anyone. For the rest of the day, she moved like a ghost. Distracted, when her shift ended, she went to the back room and sat at the piano. But she didn't play. She just sat there in silence, listening to her heartbeat. Later that night, she called the number on the card. A woman with a soft voice answered, "Yes, Miss Lily. We've reserved your slot for the third performance of the night. We'll arrange a car too. Pick you up on Saturday evening?" Lily almost dropped the phone. She whispered, "But I'm not. I'm not a professional." The woman chuckled gently. "Sometimes the best music comes from people who've never been told how to play." Lily stared at her reflection in the diner's dark window. Could she really do this? Could she play? In front of strangers? Wealthy, important strangers? What if she froze? What if they laughed again? She walked home that night in silence. The cold wind bit through her thin coat, but her mind was somewhere else, somewhere filled with lights and music and a piano bigger than any she'd ever touched. The next day, she went to the local thrift store. She had $42 in her wallet. She searched through racks of worn dresses and faded shoes. Then, tucked in the corner, she found a long navy blue dress. It was simple, a little loose, but clean and elegant. It cost exactly $38. She bought it, tucked it into a paper bag, walked out feeling like she'd just bought a star. On Saturday evening, the black car arrived exactly on time. Her neighbors peeked through their windows, curious. Lily stepped out in her navy blue dress and borrowed heels. She didn't look like a waitress tonight. She looked like someone with a story. The driver opened the door, and she slid into the warm leather seat. The city lights grew brighter as they drove toward downtown. Tall buildings sparkled, music drifted from open windows. Ellie pressed her hands together to keep them from shaking. When the car stopped in front of a beautiful glass building, her heart nearly stopped. This wasn't just a small event. It was breathtaking. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, people in gowns and tuxedos filled the hall, but no one looked at her with mockery. They greeted her with warm smiles and polite nods. A woman guided her backstage and showed her the piano. It was a grand Steinway, polished like a mirror. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She reached out and touched one key. It was smooth, rich, and deep. Very different from her old piano, but somehow familiar. She looked around and saw Ethan in the crowd. He didn't wave. He just gave her a small nod and a quiet smile. It was enough. Backstage, a man handed her a small cup of tea and said, "You're next." Lily closed her eyes. This was it. No diner, no laughter, no plates to wash, just her, the piano, and the music inside her heart when her name was announced. She stepped onto the stage. The hall went silent. A single spotlight lit the piano. Lily sat down slowly, adjusted the bench, and placed her fingers on the keys. She took one deep breath, and then she played. Lily stood in front of the tall studio doors. Holding a cup of cheap diner coffee in her hands, the building looked modern glass walls, shining tiles, quiet hallways, but her heart still belonged to that old piano in the back room. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The producer welcomed her with a smile. He had seen many artists before, but none like her. She carried no instrument, no team, and no ego. Only a notebook filled with scribbled melodies in her own heart. Inside the recording booth, she found a beautiful grand piano waiting for her. It looked perfect, shining, tuned, powerful. But something was missing. She pressed a few keys, then looked at the producer and said, "Can I bring in my piano?" He raised an eyebrow. "Your piano," she smiled. "The one from the diner a few days later." Movers carefully brought in the old worn piano. Its legs were scratched, the keys uneven. But Lily's fingers danced on it like they had found home again. The studio now smelled faintly like syrup and coffee from the diner, and that made it feel just right. Ethan stood behind the glass, watching silently as she played her first song. She titled it Backroom Dreams. The notes were soft, but strong. Each melody was a chapter of her life, and when the last note faded, even the sound engineer was wiping his eyes. Word spread quickly. The studio released a preview clip on social media. It went viral not because of fancy editing, but because of the story behind it. A waitress with calloused hands, now touching millions, the caption read, "Suddenly." Everyone wanted to know who Lily was. Interviews came in, magazine features, radio hosts begging to speak with her. But she stayed quiet. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted her music to be heard. She played her second track titled Booth 9. It was written about the corner table where she was once mocked. Now, that memory lived inside a song turned into something beautiful. She even wrote a short piano piece called Apron Strings. It was soft and short. Like a goodbye to her old life, Ethan listened to each one like it was a gift. He didn't try to take credit or push her into deals. He just stood beside her. Quietly proud, one day Lily turned to him and said, "You didn't just help me make music. You helped me find my voice." He smiled and said, "You always had it." The album was launched in a simple way, no fireworks, no red carpet. Just a small concert in the same diner where it all began. The tables were pushed aside, the lights dimmed, people from the town came. Some from hours away, even the rich ones who once laughed now sat quietly, waiting. Lily walked in wearing the same navy blue dress from the gala. She sat at the old piano, now placed in the middle of the room, and when she played the first note, the diner fell silent. No plates clanged, no orders were shouted. Only music. The first track played was Backroom Dreams, followed by Apron Strings and Booth 9. Each song brought someone to tears. Each note felt like healing. When she finished, the entire room stood in silence, then erupted in applause. Children clapped with wide eyes. Old women wiped their cheeks, and in the corner, Ethan clapped slowly. Eyes filled with quiet joy. After the show, Lily walked to him and asked, "Do you regret helping a waitress?" He shook his head. "I didn't help a waitress," he said. "I helped an artist." And just like that, the girl with calloused hands became the voice of 1,000 broken dreams. Not because she chased fame, but because she believed in her own music when no one else did. Lily's name was now on music charts, not at the top, but in the hearts of people who needed her songs the most. She didn't tour stadiums or chase luxury. Instead, she kept her promises to herself. She opened a small music school in the same town where she once served pancakes. The sign outside read Calloused Hands Music House. No one needed experience to join, no fancy clothes, no audition tapes. Just a love for music and a heart ready to speak. Children with secondhand shoes walked in shyly. Teenagers who had never touched a piano sat in front of one for the first time. Single mothers, retired mechanics, even a farmer with rough fingers, they all came to learn. They came to be heard. Lily taught each of them with patience, not just how to play, but how to feel. She told them, "You don't need to be perfect, just honest." Meanwhile, her album Backroom Dreams continued to spread. Hospitals played her soft tracks in children's wards. Veterans found comfort in her melodies. A little girl recovering from surgery whispered, "I sleep better when her music plays." Lily received letters from all over the world. One from a janitor in Brazil, one from a teacher in Canada, one from a blind woman who said, "I may not see, but I felt your soul." Lily read every word, tears in her eyes. She had once felt invisible now. Her music gave others the feeling of being seen. One day a young man knocked on the school's door. He stood nervously, holding a dusty guitar. "I heard your song on a broken radio in my truck," he said. "I haven't played since my brother passed." Lily smiled, stepped aside, and said, "Come in." Ethan visited the school often. Not as a businessman, but as someone who found peace in the soft hum of old instruments and laughter. He sat in the back and listened to Lily teach. Sometimes he brought snacks, sometimes just silence, but always support. People called her success a miracle, but she knew better. It wasn't a miracle, it was music. Music played in the dark when no one clapped. Music born from heartbreak, carried by hope. It was every dish she washed. It's every bruise on her hands, every silent tear turned into sound. One evening, Lily returned to the diner. It had changed a little, new paint, fewer stains, but still. The same bell above the door, set in booth 9. The same booth where she once served mocking laughter. Now it was just her and a cup of coffee. The new waitress walked over, nervous. Lily smiled. "You'll do just fine," she said kindly after. Finishing her coffee, she walked to the back room. The old piano still sat there, now polished and loved. She sat down, pressed a single key, then played a short tune, one she had written just for this room. She called it "Thank You" as she played. Memories flooded back the lonely nights. The cruel jokes, the empty pockets, but also the first applause, Ethan's quiet nod, the studio that smelled like pancakes, and the first child who said, "I want to play like you." She finished the song, stood up and placed a note on the piano. "Keep playing," it read. And she walked out with a quiet heart and strong steps. That night, in cities far away, in quiet bedrooms and hospital rooms, her music played softly, and someone somewhere felt a little less alone. Not because Lily had become a star, but because she had become a voice for the unnoticed, the broken, the quiet ones, and all she ever needed was a piano, a little courage, and one person who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. The end.